Hail and welcome to the finale of Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy. And to open this up, we have a really cool sequence where Mega Man is on Rush's back flying through space, and we are actually going to get a level like this. We get a proper side-scrolling shoot-'em-up section in a Mega Man game. And this is so cool. Like, obviously, going by shmup standards, this is really easy. It's not anywhere near the levels of, say, like Gradius or like Nemesis on the Game Boy, which I've played actually. That's alright outside of the fact that the Game Boy clearly can't keep up with what it's trying to do and it drops frames like a bitch. But yeah, there's that. It's not on the levels of like Zero Wing or Power Strike or anything like that. Like, this is basically baby's first side-scrolling shmup. That's really hard to say in a sentence, by the way. But it's fun for what it is, and I will say as someone who's terrible at shmups, that I'm kind of glad that they toned it down a little bit just to introduce you to this kind of gameplay. It's kind of like in Super Mario Land, where they pull a shooting section out of thin air and throw you into it, and it's fun there and it's fun here. I kind of appreciate these little occasional changes in gameplay style in games. I don't like it when there's extended sections that go against what you expect from the game. Like, if you think the contention a lot of people have with, say, Sonic Adventure, where you want to go fast as Sonic, but then you got to spend like half hour to an hour just fishing or whatever. That can kind of... I see where people are coming from with that. Whereas Mega Man, when it's just like a couple of minutes and you get to shoot some stuff and it's all fun, it's all cool. I'm totally cool with this, and it also really brings you into the theming of the game as well. Like, although they've done the actually fuck you it's Wily gig, like as a plot twist, which kind of, you know, kills the whole it's Star Droids this time, it's, you know, Terra doing all this bad shit, not Dr. Wily. They are at least still respecting the space theme. And so the level design is adapting to the fact that you're in space and you got your flying ship through space and you're fighting the what's known as the Wily Star. This particular boss is called the Skull Blazer, which unfortunately, no, it's not a skull wearing a fancy suit, but it is in fact a spaceship going through space with Wily's skull emblem on it. So the name's still fitting, even if the skull wearing a fancy suit would be a lot cooler. But there we go, that's that down. The one drawback of this section I can say is that Mega Man's sprite, when it's zoomed out, it's very hard to make out the fact that it's actually Mega Man there. But anyway, that's kind of a nitpick there. But one thing I usually do with these games that I haven't actually done yet is I tend to like to take a look at the critical reception that the game received. And given I've sort of spent most of my time talking about planets and Roman gods and pretty much everything other than the stuff I would usually go out of my way to talk about, I've got a couple of tidbits here I found from the critical reception. So there's Video Games, the publication. They've said, if you don't have a Mega Man game for your Game Boy, this one is as good as any. It's entertaining, it's Mega Man. If you're thinking rehash, you might be right, and it's still a pretty fun game though. So that's kind of the idea of like, it's same old Mega Man, but it's still fun, and I can kind of respect that. I would say that the same old thing isn't as applicable here as it is with the other Mega Man Game Boy games. Mega Man 2 is like Dr. Wily's Revenge, but with bad music. 3 is just that again, but with the music fixed up again. And 4 is kind of playing it safe as well. But before I go on to the other feedback I've got, here is a throwback you might remember. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Enka, the first in the Mega Man Killers line. This was the guy we fought in Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge. And if you can't tell, this is going to be the direction of part of the Wily Star, in that we will be re-encountering the Mega Man Killers series, who have been giving us grief in the other Game Boy games. And I say Mega Man Killers, but we will also be encountering Quint along the lines as well, who was the Mega Man from the future that we fought in Mega Man 2 Game Boy. And of course Proto Man's just hanging around in this space station because fuck it, why not? I suppose at least we know that Mega Man and Proto Man can teleport, so it's not quite as bizarre out of usual as some of the other cameos that other games tend to have. But hey, take what it is. So yeah, the other critical feedback I have is in 2008, Nintendo Power listed Mega Man 5 as the 14th best Game Boy or Game Boy Color game, and they praised it as the best of a quality series of portable Mega Man games. So, like, yeah, there you go. As I was saying, like, a lot of people tend to prefer this as their favourites of the 5 games. I can see why. I can completely respect that. I actually like all the games from what I've played of them. 2's music sucks, but other than that, like, I have had a good time playing through all of these. I feel like I probably won't be doing too many more little series of LPs like this where I commit to doing an entire series, even if it is a sub-series, just because I don't really want to risk burning out this kind of thing. But it has been quite fun, just going through this little mini sub-series of a series of games that I like a lot. Given that it's a little bit quirkier than the Mega Man NES games, and also like the other mainline Mega Man games, even compared to like say the X series and the Zero series, it's got its own little, I guess, like, it's the lower technology charm of it, the fact that it's in black and white, the fact that, you know, it's just a more simple version of Mega Man, and they've made compromises that end up being creative. And I don't know, like, it's hard to describe, but I've just really come to appreciate these games, even if I do suck balls at them. Like, it's no secret that when I record difficult games like this, that I do go through a lot of resets. I do mess up a lot. I'm not, whenever I make Let's Plays of difficult games, I'm not trying to be the guy that's showing off skill, because this isn't skill. This is video production. This is me replaying levels over and over and over until I get a good rundown. It's basically the monkey with a typewriter theory in action. If I keep smacking the controls long enough, eventually I'll beat it. That's pretty much my recording process. Like, I don't try to hide this. I've never been the kind of person who's like, you know, come to me for quality gameplay. I like to think the runs are efficient, and I like to think that it makes the videos entertaining, the fact that I put the effort in to get the best rundown I possibly can. But it's not a showcase of my skill. I am not a skilled player. There are people much more skilled than me at basically every kind of video game I play. If you want to see legitimate skill with these games, there's people out there that can do this level of gameplay live, and they can do more fancy kinds of runs like speedruns. And there's also people who, despite having the same approach to me of resetting until they get a good rundown, they can do much better than me anyway, just because they have natural skill behind them as well. Like, speaking of Mega Man 11 in the last part, a YouTuber who I have had a lot of respect and admiration for a very long time, Cyberman65, he has been doing a run of Mega Man 11 where he is playing on superhero difficulty, the hardest difficulty in the game. And he has been going through every Robot Master stage in that game without taking any damage at all. And I know that, like, his recording process is quite similar to mine in the fact that he keeps on resetting until he gets a good takedown. But the fact that he has the natural skill to be able to beat these levels with their intense difficulty on the hardest difficulty mode of the game, that really is impressive to me. And the fact that he goes out of his way to play the best he possibly can, both through his skill, because he is adept at playing the games, much more so than I am. If you look on his channel, every game he plays, he is bloody good at. Like, there's that, and the fact that on top of just having the natural skill to do this after lots of practice, he can also then have the patience to go and get a fantastic run of all the games he plays down for people to watch and enjoy. That's something I respect a lot. But yeah, Boss Rush, same deal as usual. You can use all their weaknesses against them now because, you know, you're not locked off from the last 4 weapons. So yeah, the boss rush, it actually makes the bosses easier. Which, I guess that's the case with every Mega Man game, because with every Mega Man game there's going to be at least one boss that you need to play with just a standard buster, but once you come back to it, you've got the sense of progression, and I feel like that's something that maybe wasn't in an intentional design philosophy of these games, but it's still something that is there, that from a narrative perspective, that you start out, it's a new challenge, it's a new task for you to go as Mega Man to take on. And so the first guy is going to be quite intimidating. But once you've got that experience from the field, once you've beat all of their brothers in arms, you know, you can do it. You've got the specialist weapons for it now. You can take them down as they're meant to be taken down, exploit their weaknesses, and just do it really efficiently. But this boss here, we're only seeing one knuckle so far. I believe there's going to be a second one actually. I don't know if it has a weakness. Let me have a little look. Oh, it's actually weak to saltwater. I believe that was Neptune's weapon. So either Neptune or Venus, one of the water ones. It gets confusing when there's two fucking water enemies. Suddenly, it's quiet. That was a really sort of dramatic explosion for a wily boss. I do like it when you get little degrees of tension like this, I will admit. Sometimes some games do overdo it, like the explosions in fucking Mega Man X3. If you beat the enemy with their weakness, they really drag out the explosion, which is kind of cool that there's a distinction if you beat them with their weakness. And that's something that kind of ties into how the game pans out. Like if you beat certain characters with their weakness, it counts as properly defeating them, so they don't return later. Whereas if you beat them with a weapon that's not their weakness, then they kind of survive and they get away and you refight them in the Sigma stages. Which is a cool little gimmick, I guess. It is a little bit cryptic to figure out with certain things, like if you want, like, say, to get the Beam Saber weapon, you have to know to beat Vile ahead of time using one of his two weaknesses. And so instead of him showing up in the Sigma stage, it replaces him with another boss. And if you beat that particular boss using Zero, then Zero kind of nopes out of the story at that point and he gives his saber to X that X can use against the later bosses. And the Beam Saber is a really useful weapon. It's not quite as OP as the Hadouken from X1, but it's pretty fucking powerful all the same. Like, it takes either 16 or 20 points of health, depending on whether it's the beam that follows the sword swing or the sword swing itself. But, you know, if you want to make the later part of the game a lot more manageable in Mega Man X3, go for the Beam Saber. Now this enemy here is called Brain Crusher, which sounds pretty metal, I'm gonna be honest here. What you're basically doing here is dodging the explosives. If you want to knock the explosives back towards him, that is basically how you hurt him effectively. You do have the low grav features coming through from Jupiter's stage, which, you know, you've been trained on how that works. It works slightly differently here in the fact that they're actually lifting you up rather than just lowering gravity. But as long as you kind of take the opportunity to shoot him in the face, then you will get through this boss. It's a bit of a drag compared to other bosses, but then it is right on the tail end of the Wily Star stages, so it kind of makes sense that they're going to get a bit harder over time. There's the man himself. So yeah, Wily is weak to Terra's weapon, the Spark Chaser. It's honestly not that hard of a boss, although your biggest obstacle is the ceiling. The ceiling is very low, so if you jump irresponsibly you will hit the spikes, and you don't want that, that's not good. The ancient weapon Sunstar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be our final boss. That backfired a little bit. It's almost like awakening a really powerful sun robot. Might need a bit more responsibility than Wily's able to conduct himself with. But yes, Sunstar is the first final boss from the Mega Man series that isn't Dr. Wily. I'm speaking strictly in terms of the classic series here. Obviously, the X series and whatnot have other enemies, but you know, what you basically want to do here is make use of Terra's weapon again, which it is a good weapon, let's be real here. I described it as a better Gemini Man's weapon. That's basically what it is. You can keep on the move with it. Gotta be a little bit defensive because Sunstar here, he can get quite damaging. He's the final boss, so you expect that, but still, you know, don't let him kill you. Obvious advice here. I know I'm right at the tail end of the 5th game in the series and I'm still bringing useful advice like don't let the guy kill you. Good job, me. I seem to recall reading that in Japan he has another name like Sun God or something along those lines, but that got translated to Sunstar, and I know it is Western censorship, but I kind of think Sunstar is a really cool name. Yep, he's been knocked down to his final point of health, so we get to see the final cutscene here. So there's your differences in mentality between Mega Man and Sunstar, in that Sunstar believes he's just born to fight, while Mega Man, ultimately, even his enemies, he wants to kind of help. And I suppose that's following on from, say, Ballard from the last game, who sacrificed himself to save Mega Man. So it's showing that although in the X series, the Reploids, their kind of selling point is that they have personalities. It seems like robots in this universe can still have thoughts and morals and ideals. Here we go. Mega Man is escaping while Sunstar is seemingly sacrificing himself, which is kind of a shame when they die after becoming good. That is a media trope that it does get me a little bit. It's overdone to the point where I'm not emotional over it, but it's still a little bit, you know, a little bit sad. My final thoughts on Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy is fun game. It's the most interesting and unique of the Game Boy Mega Man games. It's probably the one that has the most going for it outside of just being a portable Mega Man game. If you're into Mega Man and you kind of want something original, it's a fun time. If you want to just have a fun platformer, it's a fun time. I enjoy playing all the others, but if people want to skip to this one, I do get it. But, ladies and gentlemen, I have been the Flameclaw, and this has been my series on the Mega Man Game Boy games. I'll see you next time for another playthrough. Bye bye for now.